back to Review Crew. I'm your host, Jenna.
I'm Saachi.
And today we're going to be reviewing Portrait of a Lady on Fire. Here's the trailer.
Je suis peintre. L'homme intéressé par ma fille est milanais. Nous partons là-bas si le portrait lui plaît. Il a épuisé déjà un peintre avant vous.
Que s'est-il passé? Je ne sais pas. Elle vous attend.
Ça fait des années que je rêve de faire ça.
Mourir?
Courir.
Vous allez devoir la peindre sans qu'elle le sache. Il pense que vous êtes une compagne de promenade pour quelques jours.
Que savez-vous de mon futur mariage?
Rien.
C'est tout ce que j'en sais aussi. Quand allez-vous vous marier?
Je ne sais pas si je vais me marier.
C'est parce que vous pouvez choisir que vous ne me comprenez pas.
Je vous comprends. Quand vous êtes embarrassé, vous mordez vos lèvres.
Vraiment. Quand vous êtes troublé, vous respirez par la bouche. Combien de temps restez-vous?
Je ne sais pas.
J'ai un nouveau sentiment. Le regret.
Quel en est le titre? Portrait de la jeune fille en feu.
Welcome back. So this is a movie that over the last couple of months you've been telling me to watch over and over again. I finally got to watch it last night. And since this is a movie you love so much, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you think about the movie?
Okay, yeah, I think that it is one of the best movies of our time, only because every single aspect of it speaks real cinema. I mean, from the cinematography to the acting to the dialogue to the screenplay. It did win Best Screenplay at Cannes. And I think that everyone should watch it only because it is such an important film for cinema as we know it. And yeah, in terms of the story, I've never really seen a period piece that's so encapsulating. Like, we do see Little Women and we do see films like that, but this is just very art house and very niche in terms of the audience it may be catered to or even what it's about. And we don't really see relationships between two women in period pieces, which we do also, but I think that this one is different.
Yeah, I definitely agree with all the things that you've said so far. I love period pieces, and when I was watching this film, because of the context, it starts off with girls and Marianne, the main character, teaching a painting class. So, since I was, in that art sense while I was watching the film, there were so many shots and angles of camera placement where it really just looked like a painting, the way it was framed, using symmetry and stuff like that. Two of the moments I'm really thinking of was when she wants to go bathe in the ocean, Heloise, and she starts to undress in front of the blue, gorgeous water, and, she's right dead center in the frame, and it's just, so gorgeous. And then another moment where this happens is right in the beginning. She's drying off in front of the fire, Marianne is, and she's sitting in front of the fire with the two canvases placed on either side of her, also using symmetry. And then, of course, the classic kind of portrait of a lady on fire moment in the kind of the climax of the film. She's standing around the bonfire and her dress catches on fire, and she just kind of looks at Heloise just kind of looks at Marianne, and it's just such a an artistic moment. I can't describe it other than it looks like a painting.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And I think that's what makes the film so interesting is because we see these characters, three different characters from different places. So there's Sophie, who lives in the house, and then there's Heloise, and then there's Marianne, who comes to paint Heloise. And I don't know, like, I think that in the at the beginning of the film, we're taken through this journey of each of their individual sort of discoveries and reflections, and bits and pieces of their lives are slowly like revealed as it goes on. And I think that was obviously like it was brilliant pacing, and it was we are entered into the story through the perspective of Marianne, and it is Marianne's story about heartbreak, about, you know, just discovery in a place that she didn't expect to find something. And how these three characters, or two at the end of the film, kind of merge together to form their own little story in this isolated environment in the countryside of France. So I think that even that is a very interesting sort of technique that Celine Sciamma employed, that kind of grips you from the very beginning till the very end. And I like how the use of music is very minimal. You would expect music to be more of a part of films at that time, you know, the classics and everything. But I think that the silence in the film also plays a role for itself. We see it's mostly quiet. The only thing that really stands out is the dialogue, and how, again, the climax, the symmetry scene that you were talking about when she's on fire, and how that is one of the only scenes where we have this big sort of musical moment, and it's so cinematic, and just you as a viewer are like, wow, this is powerful. Yeah, what else did you notice?
I think that, like, you learn so much about these two characters within their relationship with one another and the way that they interact, but you actually don't know that much about their pasts and really anything else about them. Like you said, you get little bits and pieces through dialogue as you go through, but it's really not that much. So you're kind of just learning about their personalities through how they act. And I think in the beginning, like, you're not inclined to really like Heloise at all. She kind of acts immaturely, and although, like, she's in a horrible position, like, dealing with grief, the loss of her sister, and then this whole new situation where she has to go and marry somebody that she doesn't know, like, it really, although, like, you're not inclined to like her at the beginning, especially as a woman watching this movie, like, you begin to understand her and where she's coming from. And I think, like, a really big theme that they kept touching back on is kind of this, like, freedom to choose, this liberty, and how Marianne, like, has that liberty. Yeah. She says, like, once that her father has a business that she could take over, and she has a skill, a trade, that she can go and paint people's portraits, whereas Heloise is in a position where her only value is to get married.
Yeah, and going off of that, it's so interesting because Heloise believes that Marianne has the power to choose, and Marianne believes that she also does in a way, but then at the end we find both of them equally helpless. Nobody can really choose because sort of Marianne's track changes where she wants to be with Heloise, but she can't choose because Heloise can't choose. So even that merge again kind of gets both the characters in the same situation. And also, when we talk about, like, symbols and themes of the film, I think that womanhood is obviously a very, very big one, with the whole pregnancy of Sophie and how they kind of go about that, and how intimate it is, and how no one knows about it again except for the two of them, and how they go on this pursuit.
Yeah, it's interesting how, like, one of their largest kind of bonding moments when they really, like, come together is through this Sophie character, and, like, her major conflict, which is getting pregnant and trying to figure out a way to, like, abort her pregnancy, and like, it's really there was a moment where it was really interesting the way that they talked about pregnancy, because the whole time I was struggling, the whole first half, like, in the way that it was paced, you don't really feel, like, a sexual tension between Marianne and Heloise, really at all. And it starts to come very slowly. And one of the first moments is when they find out that Sophie's pregnant, and Heloise asks Marianne, like, has it happened to you? And I think that that's such an interesting way to talk about pregnancy. Like, has it happened? Have you become pregnant in the past? But it was also a way for Heloise to, like, dig a little deeper into Marianne and ask her, like, you know, basically, are you straight?
Yeah, and have you been with anyone?
Yeah.
Or are you with anyone? Yeah.
Exactly. And so that was a really interesting moment. And then, like, right after that whole conflict with Sophie, you finally start to see Heloise and Marianne, like, accept their feelings for one another, and they have this time. It's such a shortened time frame. They have 5 days together. And so that's, like, what makes the second half of the film, like, the pace speed up so much, because, you know, it's that clock ticking down. You only have so much time.
Yeah, and what's also interesting about it is that they don't really mention the time until she gets to leave. Like, we are not aware of how much time she has left, or, you know, we're kind of so involved in the film at that point that we feel the same sort of feeling that Marianne would have felt, like, oh no, now my time is up. And even as the audience, we go like, oh no, her time is up. And again, just the dealing with that, it wasn't overtly dramatic. You know, we see films these days that are, like, so dramatic, and even in period pieces we would see a lot of drama surrounding that, and the involvement of the family, and just, like, exterior characters that kind of, you know, influence the two characters. But I think that one of the reasons why we don't feel that urgency is because it's just the two of them.
Yeah, I think that I agree with that, and I think that, like, the lack of other characters also, you know, made that sense of urgency more important, because you're really just seeing the two of them together. And you know, like, it's important to note that there is, like, basically no men in this movie. It really is just playing out the dynamic of these two women. So we talked a little bit about their choices before, and, like, whether they kind of get to choose their path in their lives. And I feel like the only real moment of choice in this film is at the very end, when Marianne sees Heloise at that concert, and obviously they're both, like, remembering each other because of the song that's playing, and I just, like, all I wanted was for her to, like, get up and run to the other side of the theater to like go be with her, but she chooses. I thought this was such a great, like, moment of kind of like circling it back to the story that they read earlier in the film, is, like, she kind of chooses the memory of the time that she had with Heloise instead of trying to, like, prolong it. Just like in this, like, story that they were reading, the man turns around and the woman, like, falls back into hell, and they think, like, maybe he chose the memory of her instead of trying to save her. So, like, I thought that was such a good moment. Like, I loved that so much.
And I think at the end, again, I think that is also where we see the theme, like, the innate theme of the film the most, like, evidently, because the film is a sad film, but we're not constantly reminded of that throughout the film. We're only reminded of that at the end of it, and then the ending kind of helps you look at the whole film in retrospect and reflect on it.
I agree.
And how even the nuanced bits of it were sad, and it was unfortunate, but also happy because of a new discovery. Yeah. So I think.
And we talked about it a little bit right after we watched it, how we liked how it ended kind of realistically. Yeah. And that they didn't run away together, because that's the expected ending. Yeah. So if you had to rate this movie, 1 to 10, what would you rate it?
10.
10.
Yeah. I would never give a film a 10. Yeah. But this was definitely a 10.
Yeah, I mean, I'm between 9 and 10. Yeah. Like, I can't really think of a reason why I would take a point off. Yeah. So I guess I have to go with 10. Yeah. But yeah, I really enjoyed this film. Yeah, so me too. We'll be right back after this break. That's all for this week. If you want to go follow more Review Crew content, go to the Review Crew Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok, as well as Orange TV Network on Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, Instagram, and YouTube.
Find the Review Cues podcast on our Spotify or on our website at orangetvnetwork.syr.edu, where you can also find our blog and more OTN information.
See you next week.